I call this little painting Determination. We start with, it's a gouache. I've got my palette here. It's got 3 primary colours, white and black. The paintbrushes I'm using are just cheap, rounds, pointed, small. If I had a big washer, I would have used a large wash brush for the background. I went and ordered one off Amazon as soon as I realised it. This little one is a fine writer. It's just a fine brush that I'll use for the branches of the tree. And to start off, we get our paper and just mark off some using washi tape, and then wet the area within the washi. And this is where I could have used a large mop brush, but I don't have one, but I will soon. So I like this washi. It matches my nail polish, which desperately needs redoing. Once the that area is all wet, we'll start to paint the sky. So I get some white and add a little bit of primary blue, and I'm going to water this down until it's quite wet. I'm working wet on wet for the sky, so I want the colours, as much as gouache does, to run into each other and into the sky. Not too much. I don't expect watercolour off them, but I do want a little bit of frizz around the edge. So here, working into the wet sky with a blue, and then some pink, and I don't mind if some pink and blue melds together, and I'll encourage it to do that, so that we get a little bit of purple in between. Little bit of encouraging the blue into the white area, because I don't want any white unless I put it there. Anytime that I disappear off the screen, I am either mixing colours or washing paintbrushes, particularly between colours. You need the brush to be well washed so that you don't, when I'm working with white or yellow, for example, I don't get the yellow mixed in with the blue, because that would give me a green sky. And interesting though that might be, it's not what I want. So I'm just re-wetting some of the paper that's dried out before I add more paint. I've mixed some pink and some of the yellow together to give me an orange, and I'll just add some more water and encourage that to move along and to blend a little more. Feel free to make your own sky design. It really doesn't matter. It's a sunset, so the colours you're going to want are blue, purple, pink, and orange and yellow. And other than that, where the clouds go is really up to you. You don't want to do an exact copy. You just want to get the idea of, okay, this is the way that one goes together. Also, I'm not aiming for realism here. This is a dramatic painting, and it is slightly abstract. At least it's not realism. But people will recognise it for a sunset because of the colours. So there I was mixing a lighter orange by adding more yellow, and giving you time to do so as well. And more yellow. You want to keep those cloud shapes nice and round, nice and soft. If we were doing realistic clouds, we'd put a shadow somewhere on them. But as these are just bright and abstract, it doesn't really matter. And you can use any bright, abstract colours when you're doing a silhouette, which we're going to do for the tree. A little more blue peeking through the clouds and turning into purple where it mixes with the pink. Take your time to do your sky. Enjoy it. It's not quite as quick here. This has got a lot of cuts in it. Realise that and don't rush. You can always pause the video and go on when you're ready. Make sure you are ready. And here's some yellow. The gouache I'm using is Artist Spectrum, which is an Australian brand, and which I can buy in huge tubes, which I was quite surprised, 150 grams rather than the 15. It gives me a lot more paint, and it's still artist quality. That means it's got good light fastness. It's not going to fade. Any painting will fade if you hang it in the sun. Be aware of that. But hung under proper conditions, a light fast painting or something created with light fast materials won't fade over the years. This one, however, is in my journal, so it's going to be closed and kept in a drawer, except when I pull it out to add to it or show someone. It doesn't matter what brand you use what you have. That's the most important thing, because if you have to go out and buy special equipment to do a painting, it's going to cost you more. I'm just going to wipe off where the water has dripped down. I do my paintings on a slope, not so that the paint will drip down. It's better for your posture if you're at a slight slope than if you're hunched over a flat table. I was saying, use your own paints because you've already got them. And when you are ready, when you run out and you're ready to get better quality paints, I've got some reviews of different brands, and I'll continue to add to those. So now I'm using just the pure white on top. At this stage, the paper is still wet. The paint underneath is still wet. So the white is going to not be too dramatic. It's going to fade in to the colour underneath slightly. And that's good. That's what I want. I don't want stark white. I want it to blend a little more. And where I'm following some of the contours of the clouds underneath, you'll find I will change direction, because we don't want everything heading towards that left-hand corner. Just highlighting a little bit of white that's faded a bit too much. And just little cloud bumpy shapes. The shapes of a cloud are all round, not square. the tree on the other hand is going to be angular, so that will add a contrast to shapes in the background and in the foreground of the picture. And you don't worry about where you're going to put the silhouette or what the silhouette's going to be covering, because this is gouache, and gouache covers beautifully, particularly as we're using black gouache for the silhouette. And that's where I noticed that I had a hair stuck down, but it wasn't getting in the way, so I left it there. I'm just going over and touching up some bits. Now, I drew over the gouache, as you can see here, but before I did that, I got out a piece of scrap paper, and I'll show you that in a minute. I just did a rough sketch to work out what it was I wanted up here. I had a vague idea, but I wanted to put it down. So on this piece of paper that was already pretty dirty and marked, and so I wasn't going to do anything else with it, I just did this quick little sketch of an idea. I didn't stick to this in the final. And I just took my time in this area and drew the tree, but I have sped it up. So things tend to act a bit weird when I speed them up. But I drew that tree, not exactly the same. That was just a general idea, just to let me know, oh yes, I want a tree with angular branches that look a little bit like hands. This tree has been hanging on to the top of this rock, and there's hardly any nourishment for it, and it's growing despite the odds. And then with the black gouache, I went over it. I had let the sky dry completely before I added pencil to it, of course. It took about 15 minutes because the paper was so wet. This is done with the same brush, but I will change to the smaller brush when I get to the tree. And because I've already got the lines there, I'm just going to go over them and then just fill it in. The root of the tree going down the side. I left a little space. I'm not sure if you can see it between the root and the rock. So you could tell that it was part of the tree and not part of the rock. And this is where masking tape, washi tape, comes in and to its own, because it keeps the paint from going where you don't want it, and you get this lovely sharp line. And of course there's the joy when you take that off and you see it finished with such precision. I think at this point the paint was just a little thick. I just had to water it down a little bit so it would flow. because you don't want to water it down too much because you don't want to disturb the layers underneath. You can see the contrast of the thick black rock against the bright, lighter clouds. Now I think I'll change to the smaller brush. So I'll give that blue brush a good rinse. No. Here we are. So this is my fine brush. I wanted the tree to look as knobbly looking as possible. It's old, it's been hanging on for a long, long time. And as I'm just going over the pencil lines, I'll speed this up, which means that I have no idea how the recording is going to come out. It can be a little bit iffy when I speed up film. It's a post-production problem. So I cover quite a lot of the area with the black so that the tree is reaching out and stretching out far. But because the branches are so light, so fine, it doesn't cover up the sky behind it, but rather sits in front of it. And then I'll go back to the larger brush and add a few leaves. To add leaves, it's just a little stroke, more than a dot, but less than a stroke really. It's sort of just like a pointy dot. And just add little clumps of leaves at the end of some of these. It's all this poor tree can produce, and it's losing them fast. hopefully it would have seeded at some stage in its life, and the seeds would have found a more fertile soil than this barren rock. And then the leaves start to drift away from the tree and blow away in the breeze. You can put as few or as many leaves as you like here. I think I overdid it. I think I would have preferred less. Last one. Oh, just one more. See, I always overdo it. And then, of course, there's one more important thing that we have to do. Okay, two more important things. We have to take off the tape. Always pull away from the painting once the painting is completely dry. Always down and away from the painting. Or at the top, up and away. That way you don't risk tearing into the painting itself. Sometimes I use washi tape, sometimes I use masking tape. Both work. And the other important thing is we have to sign our name. You can sign it anywhere that you feel is the right place. And remember, if it's going into a frame, sign it further up so it isn't covered by the edge of the frame. I hope you enjoyed today's painting. I hope that you try it yourself and that you enjoy that. If you did, please leave a like. If you would like to join others, subscribe. It only takes you a minute to hit a button, but it means so much for us. Thank you very much.